Is that when you shot it, 2017?
Yeah, we shot it in 2016.
Right. Yeah. Came out in 2017.
2016, right? No, yeah, 2016.
Like the fall,
November.
right?
Yeah, it was like right, I think, what, October, Ronnie? And you left November?
All right. Okay, guys, so here we are. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. It's Monday night, 8 p.m., and this is another one of the film talks coming from the Westdale. As you know, since we closed down in March, we've been having film talks, film clubs, all sorts of activity to keep our community excited about cinema. And this most recent iteration is my favorite film, and we have a guest each week who's going to talk about their favorite film. And in this case, it's going to be Warren Sonoda, who's going to talk about a Canadian film called Black Cop. And we have both the director, Corey Bowles, and also the star, Ronnie Rowe Jr. So this is very exciting. And first, I'm just going to introduce Warren, because if you don't know Warren, you should. He's a Hamiltonian, been here for many years. In fact, Warren and I first met when I kind of moved out here about 5 years ago, and we actually worked on a and together. So
yes, sir. Well, I knew you from years before that.
I knew you before that. That was our first time we worked together.
Yeah.
And anyhow, and Warren, of course, has also really been an inspiration, because he's taken a real leadership role in terms of the film community, in terms of bringing diversity to the film community, working with the DGC, and other active groups. And in fact, we were going to be premiering his most recent film at the Westdale, but we got shut down. But Warren, before we jump into Black Cop, why don't you talk a little bit about your film, because it's premiering this week.
Well, thanks so much, Fred. I mean, the reason why I chose Black Cop was it's one of those, micro budget movies with a big heart. And for me, it was like, I got to make another movie like that again. So when I saw it, Corey, we were just talking, like 2017, 3 years ago, was the year before I made Things I Do for Money, which is the movie that's coming out, Starlight. And thankfully, Hamilton is showing up. We sold out our Starlight drive-in premiere. So yeah, Ronnie, there's this amazing drive-in theater in Hamilton called the Starlight. Fred owns the Westdale, which is our sort of renovated art house cinema downtown. And we were supposed to play the entire weekend in April. April 8th, I think, was our release date of 9 cities for this little $160,000 movie. $160,000 movie. So we missed the window by that much.
Man. And Warren, did you like, it's such an interesting story how you got to this movie. Like, I remember, like, early on when you were talking about, can you tell, like, how did you get there? How did you find them?
Corey, this is your night, man. I'm geeking out on your movie.
We'll do another session on Warren's film.
Yeah, no, honestly. Like, when I did, and the reason why I chose Black Cop was, to me, it's the most stunning debut feature in the last decade. It really has had such a strong point of view. And the one thing about the films I was, Things I Do for Money was my 11th feature film. And it took me 10 movies to get to the place where I had a point of view in terms of my own personal, reconnecting with my Japanese-ness, and honestly, Corey, when I saw Black Cop, I'm like, shit, that's the thing. And Ronnie, your performance in it, man, is just absolutely stunning. So that's why I picked the movie. It really kind of set me up the summer after to go and make just so happen to have here Things I Do for Money.
There we go.
There it is.
Well, 2 Japanese brothers from Hamilton, Ontario, the Aokis, Max and Theo. They're actual brothers. They're cello virtuosos, and they steal a bag of money and all the shit that goes along with it.
Cool.
And I just want to thank you, Warren, because I've never seen your film before. Unfortunately, I missed it. And although I had to watch it on TV instead of being able to see it in a theater, I just thought it was terrific. And as Warren said, I think it's just extraordinary to see and to delve deeply into the psyche of this character. And I also just thought it seemed so prescient in terms of being made in 2006. It felt like this movie could have been made last week.
Yeah.
And that's kind of extraordinary. And I'll be interested to hear how this all came about, but very timely to pick this film, Warren, and away we go.
Yeah, I guess the first thing I just want to ask both of you is, and Corey, you've gone on record at length to talk about how this movie is a satire, but I'm wondering, with the lens of 2020 now, has the satire kind of come off of it, and is it real now? Is it more real now in 2020 than it was in 2016 when you both made it? Maybe Corey and Ronnie, you can just kind of talk about that.
Wow.
Go ahead, Phoebe.
We're going right into it, boys. I mean,
okay,
it's, you know, like, it's such an important film, and I really hope people find it on CBC Gem, because you can stream it for free and watch it. Because like Fred said, it's almost like so much of it is out of today's news feeds and Corey's Twitter feed.
Well, you know, it's actually free on YouTube for a limited time right now too.
Oh,
on
wow.
YouTube in the US. Yeah, it's on YouTube Movies. I don't know. I think you have to have an account or something on it, but that's what I just found out.
Cool.
You know, like originally the movie was supposed to be like I thought it was writing a musical a long time ago. Like I thought that's what it was going to be, and then
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like just over the top, and it was going to be like all that jazz with a cop and beating people, and it was going to be sort of a really far. And then I think it was probably around end of 2014, early 15 when I made the short film that was just sort of the body cam perspective. And just 3 incidents, and the radio call-ins.
Right.
There was a bit of a host, but mostly as the call-ins. And it was mostly just listening to social media at the time, and I was really just hearing a lot of the vitriol that was happening, and a lot of the what was being said was so absurd. I was like, well, why don't we apply those arguments to if you have to watch your community getting beat out of nowhere. So I still think it is satirical, but I think at the same time, it's weird that there's so much out in the open now. The vitriol is just out there. Like, no matter what you do, no matter how you retaliate, at sometimes I'm like, I'm almost afraid to be like, yo, man, we're going to fucking mess you up or some stuff, because people be like, oh my God, he's like preaching violence. And now it's to the point where, like, if this movie were released now, there'd be a whole lot of people that be like, this is a Marxist agenda and it's about violence and this, and they just miss the point of what it's about, which is perspective.
Yes.
And there's still not a lot, even though we have a big shift right now and so much change. You see that change happened, but now it's being overshadowed. If you're not perfect, if you're not squeaky clean, if we're not like perfect in our marches, if we're not sitting in and we're not like cleaning up the garbage, we're not doing these things, we're not helping people across the street, no matter who's getting killed, we're violent. So it's weird to see it now even more amplified that way. I don't know.
Ronnie, what about you, man? I mean, you're the titular character, Black Cop, in this, right?
I don't know if it's more relevant. I just think that things are more televised now, and things are being captured more. But the problem with it is still relevant from 2016 to now. So that's the streamline of what it is. It's still going on. So it can't be more relevant. It's right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is more than anything. It's just like these things are being televised, and because of the pandemic, people are in their homes or connected to the technology, and they're plugged right into it. So I just think it now is a time of awareness where people are more in tune that these things are happening, and now searching different avenues and things to become more educated.
I'm just going to share a screen here, and this is the opening image of the movie after some news clippings. I don't know if can you boys see this on your screen?
Yep.
Great. So I mean, this, for me as a director, Corey, your choice here to start with this immediately puts me in the perspective of Black Cop. And Ronnie, it's almost like the glasses are telling. It's the mirror of what we're about to see, which is right now a protest on screen. But you literally, allies not enemies, Black Lives Matter. You literally could put this into a 2020 setting, and it's and it's all there. It's what's going on right now. Do you want to talk a little bit, Corey, about how you started the film and why you made these choices? And here's what you're talking about, Ronnie, right? It's like right at the beginning, someone's filming this. You know that there's always going to be that omniscient observer.
Everything is televised now. Like
social media
is televised.
Black Cop thinks it's a little bit funny, and I love this, Corey, because it really sets up the dynamic right off the start. Can you just tell me? And you're going to have an entire other Zoom tomorrow about editing with Jeremy Hardy. But one thing is, like, you could have edited this a million different ways. Why this? Why the start of your movie is it starting like this? Oh, and you get a Mutie Award, the first Mutie Award of the night.
God, I got a Mutie Award. That was okay. So that's 2 scripts. So in the scripts, I wrote a series of images. Like ideally, it was like, all of the great. It was my version of, classic movies. They're always like, even as far as West Side or any Fosse movie, anything like that.
There's so much Fosse in this. You're right?
I know,
yeah.
it's brutal. I'm totally like exposing myself here. So it's Spike or Fosse.
A lot of people don't know, Fred. Corey has an amazing dance background. He is a professional dancer.
Fantastic.
And choreographer.
Boo. But it's like my version. It's my version of the macro going into the micro. So it's like showing all of that. You always like go over the city, and then you go closer, and then you go into the tiny part. So that was my version of this, where I'm showing a compilation of rallies, and we don't know where they are. Rallies, riots, fires, unrest, all of those things, and then we dial it into just another rally somewhere. Right. With the idea that Black Cop is literally overseeing that. I thought that watching this person who's had to shut out all these feelings and steel himself, seeing his, who he's had to be, then that's the glasses, like who he's had to be to just hold everything off. I thought that was a really, and in a way, it's like also how I won't lie, it's how I see police. Like I don't, from my community, I don't trust them either because they patrolled it. It's too much, actually. So it was trying to find a way in to get an audience knowing where where the energy was coming from and where we're starting from. And then we go, okay, now you've got your context. It's a cop, it's the people, it's a cop in the community. Now we're gonna go left field. So the powers, the images of rally and protest and unrest, or as people would say now, they call it, anarchism, which is crazy. That was important to me to show, really, really important.
Ronnie, very early on in the movie, Black Cop says, I lost touch with my blackness. And in a way, I kind of interpret it, some of the film is about reclaiming that part of himself. Was that part of when you put this together? What was the first conversations with Corey like in terms of where this character was going to come in? And did you see a script first, or was it a talking point off the short film?
Man, I'm trying to remember. I think it was more like where he was emotionally. You know what I mean? Where he was emotionally, because he's torn, just with who he is as a Black man, but then his duty to his job and wanting to be good at that as well. So it's just where he was emotionally. That's where I want to start, and then from there, just kind of vine it off into true experiences that I had interrelated with police.
Right. The process of you getting the character, though, was there anything that you like? Did you go on? Was there any police involvement? Did you go on a ride along? Like, what? I'm just wondering what the relationship the film actually had with the Halifax Police Department, or was there none?
With the Halifax Police Department directly, no. But I have an uncle that's a police officer.
Okay.
And with just like little conversations there, but honestly, it was just tapping into moments of emotion. Right. You know what I mean? And just finding the human, because we all experience emotions, and just locking into the emotions and making sure that that's as clear as day. And I think that's what was more important more than anything else for me.
Did your uncle give you some insight?
I would more ask questions. I didn't want to kind of jump into his mind.
Sure.
I just wanted to kind of like an overview of what it felt like. And then I wanted to internalize it and make it my own. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, Corey, has there been any reaction from either Halifax or police from this movie?
Yeah. I mean, they've been quiet about it. Like, I'll tell you a quick story in a minute about the police there. I always tell it every time because it's really, but mostly, I had a police say, cops say, yeah, it's a really touching movie, but that's not what cops are like. Like, I know black cops, and I'm like, cool, okay, no, you don't. But, but my cousin came to the movie as well. He's an officer too, so he's all like, "Yo, man, I want to flip the table after seeing this." So I was like, "Okay, good. I guess. I hope. Like, I don't know, but yeah, no. I mean, I'll be upfront. Like, I mean, I've done a couple of I did an installation. The fall that I was shooting Black Cop, as well. That was called. That was an art project down there. That was called Oversight, which was basically exploring the rate of pulling black folks over in Nova Scotia, which is well documented there, and also their answers to domestic assault. And they're always kind of like going, yeah, this is really a teaching moment, but it does go both ways. So then they just turn around and like, it. But I get it. It's probably hard. Yeah. But I'll tell you real quick. I'll tell you the story real quick. When we were working on set, the night that we did the scene where Black Cop gets profiled, we had an officer there because we have to have a POD there.
So you had PODs on everything?
Yeah. So we had two. We only had two. We had one. And this gentleman, we know him, is Constable Sparks. We've known him forever. He's been in the neighborhood forever. And we were asking questions.
I think I know Constable Sparks from
sure
22. Yeah.
He even showed up to Ronnie's play. Ronnie did Kim's Convenience, and he showed up. But anyway, he came to the set.
So this is the profiling scene here, right?
Yeah. So he's there. He was there, and he was talking about how he's felt this way before, and he's been profiled himself, and he was talking about the work in the community and gaining trust, which was the hardest thing for him because he's like, I'm a community worker and I'm trying to gain trust, but I understand that I don't get it. But he's like, I can't think about that. I can only think about the stuff I'm trying to do. And we were like, wow, this is someone. He's like, I just have to fight to not be jaded. And then later on in another scene, the first profiling scene, the Black Cop profiles a white person. We had another young guy. He's a rookie. He's from another province, and he came in, and he was just spending his whole time like showing off to the women on set, talking about how in that scene he would have broke the guy's arm with one hit and stuff. And talking about this is how, if you're gonna hit, you got to hit to break bones. And he's like, I take his hands off the wheel with just one claw. And he's talking about how he wanted to be SWAT because I want to be, they're more weaponized, and that he couldn't wait to get into the North End.
This one here, right? The jogging on the spot one.
Yeah, and he couldn't wait to get into the North End, which is where I was living, right? He said, because that's where the action is. And I was like, wow. So this dude was like, this is a new officer on the force that was actually just going there with intent to engage.
Right.
That's it. So it's like, but he wasn't even really paying attention to what the movie was about. He didn't care.
Yeah.
But we had some in the audience that were like,
This for me was really a turning point for Black Cop, right? This is a scene that's really well constructed in terms of the dreaded profiling that all my Black friends have been through in some sort of machination or where a cop just kind of comes in, and then you go into these macro close-ups of the mouth, of Ronnie's eyes. Sorry, Ronnie, that's not the best still. There's one of the gun. The second officer always out of focus, never in focus. And then, you spend quite a bit of time after that altercation or that confrontation with Ronnie just putting on his headphones and listening to music. And I know that he's going through something. This was going to be, when I saw it in the theater, I'm like, Corey ain't he's not spending 2 minutes on this shot of Ronnie listening to music for no reason. Why was this so important in terms of the construction of your narrative? And Ronnie, what was your feelings while you were shooting this in terms of, he's off duty and he's being stopped while black, basically? Maybe Ronnie, you can start first.
I mean, all I did was channel real experience, man. Like at that point I wasn't acting, I was remembering.
Right.
And it's just a different reality to live, knowing, like even to this day, like I'm a grown man, but I see a cop car and I'm like, yo, are they gonna stop me? Right. Like you just for nothing, but like it's happened so often to me that I see a cop car and I'm like, man, this guy might stop me just for nothing.
Yeah.
Like I've seen cops like be driving the other way, like just like in the black cop scene, and turn around and stop me. And I'm like, well, what did I do?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, and then they go into the spiel and I'm just like, that's why. And it's hard for people to kind of even comprehend that because they haven't experienced it.
Yeah. So if you're not black or indigenous, odds are you've not been stopped.
For nothing.
For nothing.
Yeah. And so when you tell people that, they're kind of like, really? And it's just like, and to know that I have a different spidey sense when cops are around. I just do. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, oh, and like, I'll see things that other people won't. Like I see a cop like circling around. I'll be like, hey, you know what? We got to go. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like this cop's watching us. They're like, no, they're not. I'm like, all right. Lo and behold, he parks diagonally right to where we are. And he wasn't doing that before. And I'm just like, okay, cool. So yeah, real experience is what that was.
Corey, this scene, the importance of it. Can you just talk a little bit of how you constructed it and turn off your mute there, sir?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I keep muting, man, because I don't, I got a little puppy barking everywhere.
I love the puppies.
Yeah. Okay. So again, this was a challenge. This was for me one of the most important scenes because I wanted to get this right.
Yeah.
I wanted to get this right, and I wanted to get it without showing a typical profiling scene. I wanted to really get into the energy, the microaggression, the fear, the panic, the what we'd see as aggression, just to understand what it's like to get pinned or feel like you're closed in. And actually, perhaps, as one gentleman at TIFF said, you're doing a movie about someone being picked on. This was an audience member, and I was like, well, for many people who feel like you think are being picked on, for many of them, they either end up dead or they're afraid they're going to end up dead. So I needed to show that. Now, I give a lot of credit to my cinematographer at that scene, because
Jeffrey, right?
Jeffrey, yeah. Because I remember when we were talking about it, it was one of the first scenes I wanted to talk about, and I was like, look, this is it for me. I need to do this. And originally, what I wanted to do was I wanted to do a lot of things just on him, only on him. I didn't want to show any police at all. In fact, I was just, I just want to hear them off camera. And he was like, I had a couple things I wanted to do, but when we really started breaking down, he was like, feeling like I think things need to be hazy. I think things need to be confusing. I think we need to push in really close to get what he sees directly, like seeing the things he picks
That's
up.
what Black Cop would be seeing from his perspective, right? Just the mouth, like this fucking guy's mouth, right?
Yeah, so he really went into that perspective, just like the hands, and then it was really fun to edit. Like, so we, then once we brought in that, we really played. And he also is the one we were looking. I knew we were going to have the scene where after we shot, we wanted to have Black Cop, just the energy happen, and Ronnie didn't want to do anything. He just, and it wasn't that he wanted to do anything. Nobody talked about anything. We were just kind of setting up. Ronnie was Ronnie was there. We had the camera behind the fence. We left it there. We did the scene. We ran the scene. It was 2.5 minutes long. We were like, don't move a thing, don't do a thing. Did it. We were done. And I was like, this is it. This is the panic. This is the calm. And this is the breaking point. And that breaking point of 2 minutes was like, I was really happy that night. It was a real collaborative effort. And in a way, it was just, we went in with our gut instinct. We had a little bit of a map, and we didn't quite know exactly how we were going to do it. we just did it.
Ronnie, did you remember why you wanted to do nothing? Sorry, you were about to say something.
I just remember Corey, like he's just like, just take your time, Ronnie.
Right.
And because of that, I was just like when you experience something like that, you're really just trying to understand what the hell just happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And why?
Mm-hmm.
And then those wheels are turning, and then you get angry, and then you get hurt.
Yes.
So I kind of, with Corey's permission, I was allowed the opportunity to go through each one of those moments of emotion and just allow them to be what they were. And everything just felt right. I didn't want it to feel pushed or anything. I just really wanted everyone to just stop for a second and be like,
Right.
Man, how would I feel if this really happened to me right now?
Right. Yeah, and Corey makes a really great another directorial choice, editing choice, to go right into this very ferocious workout scene where the medicine ball becomes the pounding rhythm of the scene, and it's what the audience wants. It wants that release of frustration that you were feeling because you were so reserved in the scene prior to. I'm assuming, Corey, that's why you went there with that next scene, right? Is to kind of give the audience that. Because in a normal movie, there would have been a fight, a gun would have been drawn, maybe someone got shot, some of that Hollywood stuff that would happen. But you chose a very real way to go about it. But something that is unreal about your film, and part of the reason why it does fall into satire, is just this magical realism that you have, where you break into monologue. You've cut your film into 3 distinct parts, and then very early in the movie, you tell us, you basically show us that there's going to be this sort of, I don't know if it's magical or moments with and this is supposed to be Taylor, right? Kyle, who was part of the protest. That he was the reason why people were protesting.
Yeah.
Where Black Cop kind of sees him, and then he basically says this to him, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
So the realism counterpointed with the sort of more magical moments. Where was that? Was that some of the stuff from the short film, or was this something that you just kind of constructed in the writing?
No, it was never in a short film. When I started writing the actual feature, because it was going to be a feature, like I said, then I did a short film, and then I didn't quite know. I started writing a feature, and it was just it was a character piece. So I actually started writing it as if it was a piece of theater. So I was like, if this were a show that had this, how would I do this? So a lot of those monologues and a lot of those things were being said were like, I was just like, okay, let's hammer this out. If you were talking to an audience, and then I was like, why doesn't he talk to the audience? Like, why isn't he? And it's not even the audience; it's himself. Is it himself, or is it? So I thought, and I think that even with Kyle, that character came late in the script. Like, he always had a hoodie there, but then there was something that was really important to that scene of this kid watching him, and then his kid showing up later, and I realized, oh, this is the kid that this is what's haunting him. It's not that he did it; it's that this is the thing that this is who we're always marching for and we're speaking for. He's also the only person named in the movie.
Right. He's the Trayvon. He's the George. He's the
Yeah, totally. So once we got into these things, I just thought, I went with it with the writing. It felt right in the script, and then once we did the shooting of it, again, it was one of those things where we had the monologues and we had everything there, but we actually just went into the space, we went into the black room, and then we just kind of played and we worked, and then this is what it came out as. And it's not necessarily the things I imagined. Like, in some ways I imagined somewhat more grandiose, and then but then as we were shooting, you realize that's not what we're making anymore,
Right.
So yeah,
well,
it was,
this one in particular really was striking in the movie theater. I remember because you really play not just with the color. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. But I realized that the red was anger, generally the rage that Black Cop has. The blue is the pleasant, thin blue line that wants to be portrayed by police officers. And the dichotomy is what Black Cop is. And you were able to encapsulate your themes in one image. Ronnie, what was it like doing the black box work? Because really, to me, it's some of the most striking things. I'm just going to go ahead here to, I think, for me, my favorite sequence of the entire film. And this was made, I just want to make sure people know that this was made years before Childish Gambino's This Is America. But you went there with this black and white sequence, with all the symbolism, with all the history behind it. Ronnie, what was it like doing these sequences in the black box?
It was fun. It was so fun and freeing. I think that's part of the reason why I'm an actor, is it's therapeutic.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's, again, I was allowed to be as angry as I felt.
Right.
Without anyone judging me about for being as angry as I've felt for all this garbage that people like me go through. So it was very freeing and liberating, and it was amazing, man. And just being able to play with Corey and his understanding of where this character really was, just made it so easy to do.
Well, I did make a note in my notes that this one scene is like Black Cop being interviewed by Black director, basically. Was this improvised, this moment, Corey, or were these questions written and then Ronnie's answers improvised, or how did you come about with this project?
It was improvised. The guy, he didn't know what I was going to ask at all. Like, I originally, again, this was one of the things where originally, and I'm so glad I didn't do it. Like, originally, again, it was grandiose. I had him interviewing himself, and it was just never going to happen. Like, I was just like, this.
I mean, you did that in the car,
Yeah, and it just didn't feel right on this. So, we were working on this thing, and we just set it up, and I felt like just asking him those questions off screen, again, breaking another wall and being like, this director is going to interview this officer or this person. Right. It just felt like, without really, was it a TV interview? Was he just, are these questions that people are asking him? Is this the community? Yeah. And we just kind of went with it. And there's times there when I felt like he was really getting pissed. Like, it was yeah.
You already asked me that damn question.
Yeah, but I mean, this was a testament to him to Ronnie as a performer, because he was so engaged and so fully in it. And I come from an acting background, and it's like, I understand things, but I was sitting there going, wow, he's going to plays. I'm just like, this is way beyond what I would have expected. So it was really easy to ask him, because I felt like at the time I was really speaking to this person, like hard questions, but I felt like I was getting hard answers back. Right. And it just created this, it created this amazing tension. We didn't talk much during this whole sequence we were shooting either, right? Like, I wasn't going near him, like, I wasn't looking at him. I wasn't telling him, but it felt, it was good.
Corey's being a little humble. He was an actor once. He is in one of the most popular Canadian TV shows with the Trailer Park Boys. But the black box, the interior monologue scenes, I think the most, besides the sort of the Childish Gambino scene, the black and white scene that I love. I like, when I saw it, I loved it. And then when This Is America came out, I'm like, they just copied you. I'm just saying. But this scene here, the imagine if, right? The imagine if almost soliloquy of Ronnie, you going into, and I'm just going to read a couple of them. Imagine if I told you, told the person on fire to be calm. Imagine if I told the drowning boy, stop struggling. You're making it worse. Imagine if I told, just breathe, it will pass. This sequence here might be the most prescient, because it feels like it's been ripped from 2020's headlines. Ronnie, do you remember shooting the scene? What was going through your mind? Because your commitment in this scene is like top notch, like award winning. If this was the CSAs, this is the scene that wins you the CSA. You know what I mean? Do you remember this?
Yeah, I mean, the whole black box experience, I mean, was extraordinary. But again, it was tapping into the real pain of just experiencing what we were speaking about. So, yeah, I just attribute it to Corey's words just resonating with me as well as they did, and just being true to what I was feeling, and him being like telling me to be unapologetic about how raw I was feeling. So I was permission granted, and just let it rip. You know what I mean?
So were any of those imagine ifs written? Like how much
yeah.
was they were written?
They were all written.
Right.
They were all written, but again, I just really understood and empathized with this character to the point where everything that Corey was throwing at me just made sense, you know. And I kind of understood the headspace. So if he asked me something, it felt like a very true reaction to who this character was. Right.
Fred, I realize I'm completely monopolizing all this time because I've had these burning questions.
I'm listening, and this is great to have you guys here. You know, for me, I also have to say that what really struck me was the collaboration of the director and actor in terms of the performance, right? Because, you know, I've worked on a lot of movies, and you know, with acting, there's the external and the internal, right? And a lot of actors focus on the external and, you know, how they're going to move or what they're going to say. And what was amazing to me about this performance, and again, I'd like to hear a little bit about the editorial that created the performance, is it's moment to moment, as they say, right? You're in the flow of the moment, the flow of that character. It's coming from internal, not from external. And what that did for me is it allowed me to relate to this character, because I have no perspective on this. You know, I've never been, you know, stopped by cops. I don't know much about this world, except what I read about, but because of the authenticity and the kind of pureness of the performance, it became sort of universal. It became a way for even someone like me to kind of get inside both the pain, the emotion, and everything else. And of course, what you're always looking for are those moments where it sort of falters a little, or, you know, because they're usually, you know, I mean, it's impossible. But that must be part of the editorial process, is keeping that flow together, I mean, I'm curious, was there a rehearsal period? I assume you shot this very quickly. So I mean, was there any footage you didn't use? Or, you know, was it really like that for the whole time?
Corey? Ronnie,
Yeah.
was there a rehearsal? Did you have time to prep?
We didn't really. I don't think we had any rehearsal. Did we have a rehearsal day or anything, Ronnie? We didn't, did we? No, we didn't.
It was always right before we shot. How long did I have before I got the script?
But did you get a donair and then just had you know, got together and shot the shit and went on to do it?
Ronnie got the script I think Ronnie got a script like maybe 2 weeks before he came down. Then he got changed when he came down. I think like we just sort of like we talked though. We did talk
A lot.
Which is and Ronnie and I have a good relationship, obviously. So the biggest thing is what we committed to trusting each other. Exactly. And that was like that's where it all sort of went. Like we would talk about something first, he would go and do the work, like he would ask me questions, and there would be certain things, but at the same time, like I think it's my job as a director to not inhibit someone's instinct, like unless that instinct is somehow like, you know, and I believe in this, like detrimental to the actor's performance, like to try to make sure that he's dialing into the best that he can be, or the things that, you know, to the point where he's just, you go, my job is done. Like I'm now following you, which is, we got to that point quite early where it was like, okay, now I feel like I'm documenting a character. Though we had a script, though we're gonna run our lines real quick and we're gonna shoot a couple takes, like I felt like I was following the character. So
you were documenting it.
And
So I would get in.
You know, when you're shooting with all those camera mounts, it's hard to even see what's going on, right? for the director, right? You're sort of trusting the performance even in another way, right?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times it was me standing close by, or just being nearby and being present and not at the. Sometimes I'd be at the monitor, but other times I was just, you know, in the space, but not in his space, you know.
Well, Fred, I do appreciate the candidness about, you know, how the perception of this and your way of interpreting what's happened is different. It's just simply a different perspective that you have, and it's sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes uneasy. But I think that's the point of the film, right, Corey? I mean, listen, we these last 6 weeks now. I mean, especially ever since the murder of George Floyd, we've all been put in situations of uncomfortableness and having to really figure out where we lie on the spectrum of anti-racism. And this movie, in a way, is almost a handbook for you know, white allies and moviegoers to check their uneasiness. Did you find that was part of the movie-going process when you got this out there? And has there been any reaction since May 25th from the movie?
Yeah. Sadly, like I wouldn't. There was a while that I wouldn't promote the movie. Like when all the rallies were starting and everyone was kind of catching on worldwide, I wouldn't share the movie. Like it was because I was like, it wasn't because I didn't feel like I had it right, or I feel like I don't want to be like capitalizing. It was just going like, you know, it'll be there. It's there. I was kind of like going, I was so exhausted by everything and so angry at everything that we're still here. You know, I think one of the best things, not the best things that you mentioned earlier, reminded me of something that a lot of the point of this movie was to sort of, the perspective wasn't just about like understanding what it felt like. The perspective was that to know that how absurd it is to constantly try to prove why someone had the right to live in that time. And that's where it's like, that's where all those like social media commentaries are. And even when George Floyd happened, it still happened. Like they're like, oh, but he did this, or oh, he was a criminal. Oh, he was using this. They're finding all these things. You're like, but that, like, regardless of what it is, no one deserves to die. Like, no one deserves to do that. So it's kind of like one of those things. But in these cases, you're no matter what, you're constantly still trying to defend a person's right to live. And that's where it's like, as opposed to saying, no, that was wrong. So that's the one thing I think that is sort of like, I'm getting a lot of emails now about the movie, and I'm kind of like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, we shouldn't be here, but that's I guess.
Well, and I don't want to get into it too much, but obviously in April in Portapique in Nova Scotia.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, man, like I think I remember just reaching out to you right away and just saying my heart goes out to Nova Scotia, and I mean that's why this movie's so important, in that it shows the gaps that we have, the real serious blind spots and you know canyons of understanding between a lot of people. I know you couldn't have thought of this before, but now that we've gone through the last couple months, has the meaning of this movie changed for you at all, Ronnie and Corey? Maybe Ronnie first, since Corey's muted.
I think it goes back to the response that I had before, with it being more relative now than before. And I just think it's always important, because it's, if you want to bring it down to its most basic thing, it's not even a black and white thing. It's right and wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like someone taking somebody else's life is wrong. I don't care if you're wearing a uniform. I don't care if you're wearing street clothes. It doesn't matter. You're not supposed to do that. So then when you put a skin tint on it, that shouldn't change anything about it being right or wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just all it is for me. Like, I just think.
And that's really Black Cop's perspective. Yeah.
That's it. And but you had to change the perception and the perspective, because it's harder for people to understand something without actually fully experiencing it.
Yeah. Corey, the meaning of the movie, has it changed for you at all, or is it the same?
No, I mean, I think it's the same in the sense that we're like, we're still gonna be, there's still gonna be justification. There's, all you have to do is see my Instagram every day.
Yeah,
I'll post a t-shirt and it's like 6,000 comments on a shirt that says racism sucks. And they'll be like, there's arguments. And you're just like, why are we here? So in some cases, like the movie for me is about it's not like someone called it one time a revenge fantasy. I'm like, it's not a revenge fantasy at all. I don't want that to happen. Like, one time.
In fact, you constructed it so well that it's not. It could have easily have been poorly handled, and people could have picked it up as a revenge, a fantasy revenge storyline. But it's because it's satire, because it's so deeply rooted in.
Well, I think it would have been too easy to like for someone to go, oh, you just turned this and you just wanted to kill this. But that's why someone had said, why didn't he kill anyone? I'm like, no, he's not going to, because we're not going to go there because he's going to change everything that we just did, because all of a sudden that perspective is going to be shut out.
Yeah. So it's going to be all about that one thing too, about him killing. Yeah.
Well, let's make it all about one thing here. Look at this fine actor. Sorry, Corey, you were about to say something. I cut you off. I saw a segue. I wanted to kind of get back. I wanted to get back into the movie a little bit, because this is right after the sort of the turning point profiling scene. Black Cop works out, goes into the police sort of locker room, and then he has this moment, which is rippled throughout the film later on. And then he puts on his uniform, and let's talk a little bit about some of the other cast, because this is when we first get to meet Sophia, right? Who plays Rookie Cop, basically. Yep. And Sophia Walker, fantastic in this film, brings a really great energy against what you were building up, Ronnie. And I guess my biggest question, as a fan of the film, is what was her, when you were writing it, Corey, what was her narrative purpose? And I have a follow-up question about just, Black Cop and the clothes being stolen. It was reported that, the one cop that he puts in this dumpster, the uniform was gone. But let's start with Sophia's character, Rookie Cop. How did that come about in your writing process? Because she's fantastic.
Yes, she is.
This is interesting because, that character was changed from the short. In the short, I had someone else play, it was a different part. There was a white cop and whatnot. This role for me was like, I like things gray. I like things very gray. And I think I like complexity. I think it's important to explore. You don't have to necessarily answer, but you have to ask questions. And I felt that this was a character, like, this is like, she was, to me, a character that embodied what it was like for a person who had intent to go in and do community work, who had to intent to go in and say, I can be a change. I
Try
can
to
make
help people. Yeah.
Yeah. And then seeing this thing that's going on and saying, this is not the way to do this. Like, we don't have to go there. And
the first person she's interacting in the movie is White Cop, which is everything that's kind of what you're saying is the systemic problem within, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like, even writing that scene was, it was hard. It was like, taking a whole other issue, which is outside of this thing, and talking about, the Muslim issue, and then hearing how shallow that can be on top of that. It's just every day, this is what happens. This is what happens. If it's not this, it's this. And hearing her like think so, and in her eyes, like, this is Sophia, is a great actor, in her eyes, looking at him for help, being like,
Yes,
"What?
it's like,
this
help me
is
with this asshole. Yeah.
yeah, like why aren't you saying anything?" And yeah, so for me, she was representative of a hope.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say optimism, because but I do think that there was a hope from her, and there was a different sense of control from her. And then this is one that I always find hard to explain. I feel that she is fully in control. She and yeah, there's some we had a lot of issues, even with how, not issues, how, like, I struggled with how Black Cop spoke to her at times. But I was like, that's another issue that I want to just hint at a little bit. We're not going to get into it in the movie,
Sure.
but that's, so yeah, she was an important, and I won't even say she's a moral compass, because she's not even a counter. She's just sort of an entirely different perspective that's coming at it going, I can change this.
Right.
In some ways, I won't even say, in some ways it's like, I'm not going to say it's Malcolm and Martin.
Right,
and Martin
right,
and Malcolm,
right.
but in some ways,
Right.
in some ways, I'm not going to say, what I think, but,
But there's a peaceful way, or the more empathetic way, and maybe she represents that. In the middle of this scene, we see Ronnie off looking out on a beautiful rainy Halifax street, and he has this moment again. And this is where your sort of magical realism comes into play, and it's sort of the tipping point. You realize that Black Cop is starting to go down this road, and then you give Sophia a Black Cop close up, basically. That sort of Spike Lee wide close lens, her looking right into the camera. You give her that sort of respect of giving her that close up. Your use of close ups in this movie is fantastic, man. Was it? I would assume it's all planned.
Yeah, I wanted really big close-ups right off the top. It's like I made a bit of a lookbook and a bit of a vision board for it.
Right.
That I wanted this to be right at you. A lot of it right at you.
And it's jarring for us, and it must have been jarring for Black Cop to suddenly get out of this daydream and see this close up in his perspective to get him back into the world. Right? I guess that's what you were going for. No?
For what? Sorry?
Just how jarring it is, because she's the first character outside of Black Cop to get a dedicated 2-camera, into the lens. And then everything changes. He goes outside, and I love how you're playing this. It's like, these should be 2 black kids, right? This should be an interaction Black Cop, a white cop would have with 2 black kids, but you're totally playing with this. He has a bit of a Trailer Park Boy Corey, look, and this is really a turn in the movie. Can you just explain how you constructed this turn, and also just the tone now starts to shift a little bit?
Yeah. So this is after his
Profiling.
His energy after he's in the gym, and it's him starting a new day, considering everything that just happened, hearing things from her. Everything's a little blocked out. I think the absurd starts to show itself. So that's a
great word.
Yeah. So it starts to show itself with those 2 kids, and those 2 kids who are walking around being like, "Yo, what you looking at?" And they say he's profiling them because he's staring at them. And it's just kind of like one of those things. It's like, no, you're not being profiled, actually. And the fact that, like, don't shoot me is like, you're never going to get shot. But that's also that's a tiny little stab at, I did throw a little bit of barbs at how, imitation is great. You can take everything you want from, you're good for the culture, but you ain't good for anything else.
Right,
Sometimes it's like,
Well, it's
So-
like McSweeney winning the Urban Choice Award in your radio. White rapper winning an Urban Award. Who apologizes, and then his
Yeah.
producer fucks it all up. I mean, you're taking these very layered textures of. There's a lot of inside baseball happening, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that sequence of him going out, he's starting his beat, and then, that's where we get the, once the absurd start happening, you start to hear the radio more and the hype things happening and all of that, his equating his experience, which has obviously happened more than once to him. But I think, that was important to sort of lead us into, instead of just going, oh, this happened and he snapped. It's like, why did this happen? What's he feeling? What are all the builds? And how crazy is all of this? Because it's true. Like there's, like I think one time I saw that was my costume designer who came up with that, who said, can I throw this on? I was like, absolutely. Because I said I wanted them to be, I wanted it to be almost offensive. Like I wanted it to be like those two, however we dressed them, how we worked them, it has to be angering.
Right. Nicole Frost was the costume designer. She did production design, right? Who's your designer? Your costume designer?
Sorry?
Who's your costume designer?
Her name was Kathleen.
Sweet. Yeah. I mean, that was a great touch that Kathleen did. It almost feels like a Nicole Frost little touch,
Nicole brought the sweater in.
Oh, that's perfect. I thought so.
Production design.
Yes. Ronnie, I want to walk you through your beat. Corey just talked about it, but in a lot of ways, Corey creates Halifax the way Scorsese showed, east side of New York City. I mean, Black Cop could be Taxi Driver, right? Going around the beat. And now we get into what the screenwriters and the Hollywood types call the promise of the premise, or the meat of the movie, which is this really amazing sequence. I don't know how many scenes this is, but it's like 6 scenes of just a complete perspective switch. What was it like, man, when you got the script and when you knew you're going to shoot scenes like this? What was going through your heads in terms of how you wanted to do this? Because it's totally turning everything on its head now. Black Cop is completely going to get to the audience in a significant way.
It's one of the reasons why I was so excited to be part of the project, is because it turns everything upside down on its head. So I trust Corey and his artistic expertise. So anytime he asks me to do something, I don't question much of it, because I just know where he's coming from,
This first one, I know exactly the street. Shot on it for 22 minutes. It's perfect. Halifax. It's kind of downtown, but not downtown or uptown in that area. And I just found that one of the most hilarious things is this dumpster moment, because you're just finishing putting the dumpster down. But I do have a conceptual question. Like, is Black Cop a real cop? Did he take the clothes? No. Black Cop's a real cop. He took the clothes off as a red herring?
What it is? He humiliated him.
Okay.
Like it was one of those things where it was like, he's not just going to choke him. He's going to humiliate him.
Right.
He's going to put him in the dumpster. He's going to take off his clothes. He's just going to leave him there. Right. And it's like one of those things when you go far, or you do a thing and you're like, it's not enough. It's like this, enough of your bigotry, enough of the things you say, enough. This is where I'm going to put you, and you're going to sit and you're going to feel like shit for a while. That's kind of like how that started, I guess. Yeah. Because
I have talked to other people who've seen the movie, and we do question, because it's kind of like, that's how layered the movie is. You put it out there that there's someone going around like a cop, and then it's in the audience's mind of like, oh, is Black Cop? I saw him at the locker. He was in there the day before. Like, he's a real cop, but suddenly you're starting to question the reality of everything with this one little thing that I don't, if it wasn't intentional, it certainly gave another layer to everything.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those things where when they say that, oh, they're reporting and they say it's a person dressed up as a cop, that to me was going as far as saying, there's been a number of times when things like that happen, and cops are just like, well, I just wouldn't do that, so it must be someone dressed up. So it's kind of like that whole, because he was naked or whatever, and his clothes are gone, that whole idea of not so much red hair is just that people are, and it's happened. Like, and the fact that people told me that shit, people be like, that's not realistic. No one ever dressed up a cop and do horrible things,
Well, and like,
but
look at recent history, right? So
it's brutal. Yeah. But that's what that is all.
So Ronnie, you go on. I love this. It's like, it's a friendly game of baseball. You probably play 6 games of baseball here in various ways. What was it like shooting these scenes with the other actors? What was the, was there discussion about what the scene was in terms of how you would approach it?
For sure, we definitely spoke, but I think it was more making sure that everyone knew that I was a nice guy before, before I got into.
Just like White Cop is probably a really nice actor.
But like just going over the premise of, you might see the side of me, but this is who I am, and I just want you to trust me and just know that I'm going to stay within the constraints of what we've rehearsed and all of that. But I might look a little scary when I'm coming at you, so be prepared.
Well, and this scene, especially the entitlement that is shown from the couple that comes out of the car, is, I would just assume, Corey, this is probably a lot like this entitlement and like dude doesn't even stop jogging for Black Cop. You know what I mean? It's like total the biggest disrespect you can show. He just keeps jogging on the spot. Did that come in the blocking or was that written that way? Corey, do you remember? Oh, sorry, you got a media word. You can keep it off. I mean, your dog.
No, it's okay. It's in the script. Yeah.
Oh man, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's there. It's just that actor, like, I really wanted him. I mean, obviously Christian Murray is like a legend at home, and he just. I was like, how is he going to play this? Because I was like, I really wanted to have that. Like, we're in that neighborhood too. But the way he did it, was way better than I could have ever expected. I felt like he was incensed. Yeah. So no, that was there. It was just his influx and the way he took those lines and the way he played with those lines. Like they were really great. Like I remember I think I had to do 3 or 4 things running back and forth at the bases just down the street. And him and Ronnie just going over those lines, like just bang, 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 over and over and over. And I was like, geez, guys, leave a little for playing, will you? Like I'm thinking
for the
like,
film.
but they just, it was, it's one of those times where it was actually 10 times better than what I wrote, even though it was what I wrote. Like they lifted it to a place where I was like, wow, this is like just.
Well, and this scene too, and this is the start of the motif of Ronnie having some sort of gun, whether it's his own finger and you chose a stun gun to start with. A very deliberate choice. I'm sure you went through a bunch of things, but why did you start with a stun gun?
Well, funny. This was in this scene was in the short. Pretty close to its to the way the only difference is the cars are reversed. So I always knew he was going to tase him first. We start with a bit of violence before you get extreme. It's always like a little bit. You can do a little bit more, then you get to the next thing.
Which is great. I mean, it's that constant, voyeuristic. Someone's always shooting. Someone across the street sitting there. But I love that it's a stun gun because you again, satire, right? You're bringing the audience into this world without turning them off immediately.
People laughed at this scene. When he gets tased, they laugh. They don't laugh 6 seconds later, but they laugh in this. And that's sort of the thing is we're going from Christian, the doctor, in being beaten down, which people think is really funny because he's so, he's so entitled. Then you
Yes.
get to this, and then it just gets really dark through this. But he played it really well, and yeah.
Well, and that's also the lens of racism, where it's funny because they're white, right? It's funny because they have this sense of not of being not invincible, but everything's going to be okay because they've never had to worry about these sorts of things. Whereas, even in the movie, in Ronnie's monologues, he's talking about his father telling himself as a kid, if you ever get pulled over, put your hands up and hope that nothing bad happens. And this is where the sort of layer of satire and the texture in the movie comes out. And then it builds up to this scene, which is the campus scene, which I just think is brilliant. I mean, basically being stopped while white on campus. And Ronnie, do you remember this day? Can you tell me a little bit about the shooting of the scene?
I remember we got up to the point where I was pointing the gun, and that's Tyler, right? Tyler Olson, or Taylor Olson. My apologies, but Taylor's great. And I remember speaking to Taylor, and he has a daughter, and I was just like, "Hey, man, just imagine, like, when I do this,
right,
that you're not going to be able to see her again." And he let her rip.
Yeah,
I just remember that, and and then it got me because he was just so scared, and it was very real at that point. It was he did a great job.
And then Corey, here we go with the motif again. This time without the gun, but you do again this sort of. And tell me if magical realism isn't the right word, but you do this moment where he shoots and he does go down, and it's a little bit of a commentary, I think, for the audience to try to interpret. But what was your writing behind that moment?
The most clear way I can put it, because I always find these things hard to explain. You just do them, and you understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But he did. He shot him in the back, but he can leave anytime he wants to. That's the difference. He gets to go home.
And he gets back up. Yeah.
He gets to go home. Yeah, he gets back up. He gets to go home. But he got shot. He was unarmed and he got shot in that moment. Yes, it was by his fingers, but that's what happened. The difference is that he is going to go home to wherever he gets to go. And that to me is like one of the big things. Like, he doesn't have, like, for a minute he feared about going home, but he's, so I guess, that's always been a hard one for me, but it was there in the short as well, but it was always an important, it was one of the first images that always have come in my head, and that was there from the beginning.
Well, I think metaphorically, it sums up what you're trying to say with your film in just one really compact, really thought out, well executed sequence, and then we get into what will be the third part of the movie, a little reappearance of Kyle, Black Cop having a little conversation with Rookie Cop again. And Fred, I realize we have about 20 minutes left.
We're going to be, we could start about 10 minutes. So.
10 minutes? Okay, cool. So, I mean, I just want to get to the end of the film here. And, this is hoping that people that are watching this have watched the film, so we can just talk about it a little bit. But this scene, I mean, this one really is so powerful. And it's basically Ronnie's tour de force of performance. This is where Black Top is talking to himself. Ronnie, shooting the scene, what was it like for you? What was the process of going about doing this?
Just contrast was my big underlying thing. I just wanted it to be the two, your conscience is what I wanted it to be. That's what I thought it was. And again, it's just a lot of fun. This film was very freeing. Because it really hit a lot of raw emotional spots for me, and I was just able to again let it rip with Corey's permission. So
Well, in your good hands with Corey. Corey, the execution of the scene is basically flawless. What was the shooting of it like? Especially knowing how small these cars are. I mean, it's you have a tiny amount of space to convey this amount of emotion.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Again, this is one of those things where I had the way I wanted it to go, which was, I thought we can only really, I was like, because we're so confined, the only real way we're going to nail this is doing backseat coverage. And it was, again, cinematographer Jeff was like, I think we can head on every angle, put a camera here, bang, 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 bang. And it was really quite lovely. Like he really was, that's my hand, by the way.
Yeah, I was gonna.
It's a little. You got the color correct a little off, but that's
all in
okay.
the car. We're all in the car. It was the main thing for me was that we were getting all these angles. We just kept driving down the same spot, and we were running late because we always lost light. I think it's only about 4:00 here, but we're losing light.
No, November and Halifax. Yeah.
It was just, the whole thing was just about get the energy, get the intention. So, but the problem was every time we do something, Ronnie would do it really good. And he would do it like he would get better and better and better. We want to get to this last point where he, the final point where he leaves the car. And so it's sort of like, it wasn't so much that it was trial and error. We just knew what we started to know what we were going to do. We started to follow him. He'd do this performance and we got to pull back out, hit this other thing, or we need to go make sure we linger on this. And a lot of it for me was going, but at the time I was thinking, like, I remember my AD was just going, let's go, let's go, let's go. And I was like, I needed to get every single moment that I had to edit from the gun going up. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to cut this unless and we were just picking off everything. And it must've been hard because Ronnie was just in the mode the whole time.
Right.
I think we ran the scene, like we only actually ran it about 5 or 6. Yeah, about 5 or 6
At least
times.
he knew he was where he was sitting. At least he could go, okay, I'm in the driver's seat, I'm in the passenger seat, right, Ronnie?
Yeah. It was crazy. It was crazy. Like, but this that thing going back to Ronnie, like talking about his work and having the freedom. Like, this is the hard part with this because this movie completely relied on the actor. Like it relied on the actor who's got to carry the whole movie. They got to take an audience for and I had to put all my trust in him. And they did, but there's so many ways you could take this to go, I don't feel like I want to go there. Or I feel like he had no ego about it. And that was like, it was painful when we were shooting because he had so much raw energy, because he was going in these confusing places. And then, those of us that were of color on the set, we were feeling that as well. Yeah. It was just like really like hard days because of this shit,
Yeah, and I'm just going to try to wrap this up. We're here at this seminal moment where suddenly the body camera is gone, but then Black Cop is found by Rookie Cop in this parking garage, which couldn't have, one thing I just want to shout out, it couldn't have been an easy location to get. And let's just talk a little bit about the location of Halifax and Sean R. Clark. It'd be remiss for me to talk about Black Hawk without shouting out Sean, who is one of the most beloved location managers anywhere, but especially in Halifax and Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Tragically passing away earlier, but always in our heart. What was it like finding these locations with Sean and getting the locations of Black Cop? I have this little what do you call it? Whale that he makes out of wood. In the background. Yeah.
You know what? It was beautifully frustrating, and I mean that in the sense that Sean is like, let's find this easy way for you. Push him, and then he wants to do a really good job. So we I had places I wanted, and I was like, I want the city hall. I want the province house. I want this. And we would find these places. We knew some of them, but there was like, it was a challenge. It was a major challenge. But this location for me was the most important. Like getting the actual real province house. I was like, I want to be the highest up in the province that we can be, and not candy coated. So it was tough. It was
right.
hard.
But Sean got it for you.
We got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little. I mean, there's so many moments in here. Obviously, Sophia's sort of confrontation is brilliant. I love, dude. I love this. This is such an amazing moment. You know, who the hell would do that? People are assholes. But let's just talk about the actual coda of the movie and a very powerful spoken word poem by this artist. Sorry, Corey, what's his name again?
Andre Fenton.
Yes, that's right. And you know, can you just kind of wrap up the end of the film, what it meant to you, Corey, and what it meant to you, Ronnie?
This is that's a hard question. I don't know. I get a lot of emotions about it. I mean, I was emotional that day when he was reading the poem, or when he was doing the poem, and listen to how everyone was responding. So for me, it was and it was a bit of it was reminding us that I think it was the voices that go unheard that were, it was, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I don't know how to answer that. It was like,
well, Ronnie, what was it like when you, I don't know how many times Andre did this. Do you remember the process of shooting? I mean, one of the lines that really stuck out for me when he basically spits such a powerful manifesto of sorts at the end. You know, one of the lines of I'm not being black for the day, right? It's like it goes into this place that is pure poetry, and in a lot of ways, Black Cop is poetry. Ronnie, what was it like when you were hearing this?
It was saying a lot of things that I've never been able to say before, or felt judged in saying, and he articulated it so beautifully and so gently, for people to really take it in. So it was it kind of like a weight was like lifted in a way, because again, he said a lot of things I wish I was able to articulate the way that he did. And it was like the perfect like cherry on top with regards to the whole story. So yeah, I don't know if I answered.
It was the circular motion, right? You start at the Province House, you end there. Again, Corey, was that constructed in editing, or was that a script choice? You knew that was going to happen.
Which, sorry,
the circular nature of it. You know, starting at the protest, ending at a protest.
Yeah, that came late in the script, but that was how we were going to end it for sure. And then he disappears into the crowd, and just sounded like, you know, I had ways that I thought it was going to go, and it went more organic than I thought it would be, and that was the right choice and the right way it should go. I had to listen to that. So yeah, it was. I was pretty happy. I mean, I think that's the way.
What you just said could be the entire movie. You know, it was organic. It could have gone any way. You made choices. You went the right way.
For sure.
Summing it up, you know what I mean? Sorry to interrupt,
sure.
but like.
No, that's good.
But yeah, I know, Fred. I don't know if there's any.
I'd like to ask a question from one of our viewers.
Sure.
It's from Tammy, and I'm sure a lot of other people are wondering too. Is what now, Corey? Where's your head at? What are you working on? Is there a film? Is there a story? Is there how does this how does this continue, or are you in some other direction now? Or
yeah, I'm about to do a couple of now that we're back, we're starting our phasing back. I'm about to direct on a couple of TV shows, but film wise, I just finished another script I've been working on for. I didn't start writing it till earlier in the year, but I've been thinking about it for a while. But that's a piece that I call it a Black family noir that takes place in Weymouth, Nova Scotia, in South Valley, which is a Black community. My family is from, very rural. I don't know what to say except it's based on my mom and her sisters, and it's Black women and shotguns and revenge and secrets, and called Mink Country. So I'm working on that, and I'm working on I'm trying to finish an animation called Spaceism, which had another name called Something in Space, but I'm not going to use that title. I'm using Spaceism. But yeah.
Ronnie, what about you? You're in Vancouver under a heavy NDA, so you can't really talk about it. But in terms of, do you have any personal stuff that's coming up? Any creative projects you're working on?
Honestly, just currently what I'm working on right now, and just trying to make sure that my heart stays as open and kind as I want it to, with all the madness that we continue to get thrown at us. So
Respect, man, respect. Yeah.
We're actually working on something as well. Ronnie and I were writing something that.
Excellent.
Yeah. So that's
Black Cop 2 body cam.
very different piece. But it falls into it is a bit of a social commentary, but it falls into this very contained piece. But it's not nothing like this. It has to do with grief and life, love, death, and grief and.
It's good.
Can't wait.
I'd like to, we do have to wrap it up now. And of course, thank you all so much for joining us. But I do want to make one last observation, which is that although, as you said, Corey, the film and the intention of film, meaning of the film, same today as it was 2-3 years ago. But my observation is I think the audience for the film may have changed. I think that because of the pandemic and what's going on, the people's awareness is changing. To me, this is a film that should be used as an educational tool. It should be in schools. We have so much attention now in trying to raise people's consciousness about, diversity and about different perspective. And I can't think of a better way than doing it than with film. You could do it with speeches, you could do it with history lessons, but film and character and emotion is a powerful way to do it. And I really hope that you do, provide the opportunity and put it out there and try to find different groups outside of the traditional entertainment industry who might see the value of this film, because I think it would have tremendous value. And again, I think you'll find that there's a lot of people like myself and of course young people who might really benefit from watching this. So and anyone who is watching or is going to be watching this who hasn't seen the film, again, it's readily available at the moment and
in the States on YouTube, right, Corey?
It's on YouTube.
It's Hulu. It's on Hulu, Google Play, Apple. It's sadly it got a spike recently, which I am happy about, but it's also sadly, but also I'm glad, like you say, Fred, like the good side of it is getting out there, and that's good.
Yeah. And in terms
at the end of the day, as filmmaker, that's all you can do. You can you make it, you put it out there and let the universe do the rest. I mean, what else can you do? But I think this is a film that will stand up and a film that I've heard this wonderful conversation, I'd like to watch again, and I bet a lot of our viewers are going to watch again.
Well, thank you. I mean, Fred. I mean, it's wonderful that to ask me to be on this Westdale Zoom or Facebook Live, because it is. I think we'll introduce this film to a whole new audience in Hamilton. I mean, the Westdale, Corey, Ronnie. When we're all able, I'll invite you over. We'll go see a movie at Fred's Theater.
Listen, I'd like to show this movie. We often bring back movies and give them a theatrical, presentation and bring down the filmmakers, and there's a very strong, cinematic and film community here in Hamilton that I think would just really appreciate this. So thank you, Warren, and thank you all, and then for the rest of you, if you want to learn more about the Westdale, please go to our website, thewestdale.ca. You can learn about film clubs. We also have live music performances.
You can make a donation, right? You can make a donation. Yeah, there you go.
Most importantly, we're actually
support independent film and cinemas.
Yeah, we're opening this Friday. We're going to be allowed to have 50 people attend. So we're very excited about that, and we're going to continue to curate and show interesting and challenging films, and of course, diversity and inclusiveness is very important part of what we're trying to do. In fact, we're actually working right now on creating a Hamilton Black Film Festival.
Oh,
maybe that's something I can follow up with you guys about, because there are a couple of people who approached us about trying to do that in the fall, and So lots of exciting things going. So
That's fantastic.
That's
And I'll see Hamilton on Wednesday night at the Starlight.
yeah,
for
go
things to
see
do for
Lawrence
money.
film. I'm going to actually go to a drive-in for the first time. How many?
We're sold out. We're sold out, Fred. Sorry, man.
The whole,
Also-
all the screenings?
Yeah, we only have one. It's a one night only thing, but we are releasing on digital August 11th for Things I Do for Money. It will be coming
Amazing.
out on all the platforms, much like Corey's Black Cop is available on all the digital platforms. And you know,
I think there's a milestone. There's a milestone to that movie, isn't there, Warren?
well, I mean, you know, it's so funny. Corey and I, we text each other back and forth, and I posted something where, yeah, it's the first Canadian genre film written, directed by a Japanese director, starring 4 Japanese Canadians, ever to be sold to the U.S. But like anything is a first for the Japanese filmmaking community, because there's only so much of us, right? It's like.
Man.
It's like me and Randall Akita and Mayumi Yoshida in BC, Hiro Kanagawa. I mean, there's what I hope is when we make movies, we show that it can be done. And obviously, Corey, making Black Cop, I know there are not just Black filmmakers or Indigenous filmmakers or Asian filmmakers, white filmmakers. You probably inspired a whole new wave of people to go, shit, I can do that. You know, I have a story that I want to tell that's like that. And, you know, you meld all the different styles with cell phones and the body camera and the narrative camera. It is sort of a nice beacon in the darkness of independent filmmaking to go, that was great. And I really do think in the last decade, it's one of the best directorial debuts ever. So congratulations, man. And Ronnie, couldn't have been Black Cop without Black Cop. So
Appreciate you, man.
can't wait
All
to
right,
see what
thanks
you
for
do
coming
next.
by. Hope to see you in Hamilton one day. And I'll
Thanks,
see
guys.
you soon. Take care,
Gotcha.
everybody.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Everybody.
Thanks, Fred.
Bye-bye.